103.1.
Still keeping it real, 3TFM.
Hello and welcome to the Career Show here at 3TFM. That's www.3tfm.org, online or 103.1 on your local radio. And once again, I've got a very special guest who's on the show, Dr Danielle Farrel, who has recently set up a company of her own regarding disabilities called YOU. Now, Danielle can obviously tell us a bit more about that. But also co-hosting, we have Laura McNeil. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Okay, I'm going to kick off, Danielle, just by asking you, school days. Let's talk about the early days.
That wasn't yesterday.
Let's look at primary school. What was it like at primary school for you?
Well, primary school, I went I'm from Kilburn, although I live in Aberdeen now. So I went to one of the local primary schools in Kilburn. The early years of primary school were pretty straightforward, and I was fortunate enough to not experience any sort of bullying or anything like that, because everybody just sort of saw Danielle, and it was just the norm that I maybe needed a bit more support or whatever. But I know that my parents had a bit of a challenge to get me a place in the local primary school, because at that point it was thought that my disability would disrupt the class for whatever reason. But it was only, to be fair, it was only towards maybe the end of primary school that I started to feel the differences in not being able to do everything that my friends or my peers could do. So I started to feel the gap maybe then, and that's why I made the decision that I did when it came to moving on to secondary school.
What is your disability, Danielle?
Cerebral palsy. So that is a really wide spectrum. There's no two people that will be the same. So for me, that means that I'm a wheelchair user, and that I need help with daily living to get tasks. But a common response when people ask me that, I'll say, oh, it's only my legs that don't work. Yeah. Because I can do everything else. It's just physical things I need assistance with. Practical things.
Were you always in a wheelchair, Danielle?
Yeah.
Early days.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you were in, say, school, for example, the primary, in a wheelchair? Did you feel that out of place, or were you well accepted?
I think like in the early days I was sort of well accepted, and everybody just kind of, I was always in the playground with my friends, and I'm quite fortunate to say that 30 years on, I'm still in touch with some of the friends I went to school with, although maybe not as much as I was at one point, because we all have our own lives now, but I'm still in touch with them, and sort of I grew up with them outside the school as well, so to them I'm just Danielle. But as I say, it was towards the end of primary school when I was reaching early teens that I started to notice the differences so much, and that's why I probably made the decision that I did at that point to go into, and I hate this term, but I decided to go to a special education secondary school. So at that point, Ash Creek, it doesn't exist anymore, but at that point it was the only special school in Scotland that followed the mainstream curriculum. So that's the decision I made then, but for me at that point it was probably the best decision I made, because I was able to go on to Ash Creek, and although they had the practical and the physical support that I needed, I still moved from class to class. I still was able to achieve 6 standard grades, 2 highs and 3 intermediates, I think it was. And if I'm honest, that probably started me on the journey that I finished with my PhD in 2015.
Yeah.
So I decided, after that scrape, to go back into mainstream. So I went to college, did my HNC, my NC, HNC, HND in media. Then I got a third year entry into the media degree, did my honours, worked for a year in between at the uni, then went back to do my masters and then my PhD.
That's quite a journey.
Yeah. I don't do things easy.
No. I'm thinking, I'm kind of looking at the sort of secondary sort of stage. You move from the primary into the secondary.
Yeah.
I mean, were there any subjects you were really good at, and any subjects you went, oh no, I have to do that?
Maths, I'm no good at maths. I hate maths. I can do the things you need on a daily basis, money and time and stuff, but when you complicate it with, I don't know, formulas and stuff, I can never get my head around that as well. But English and things like modern studies and things like that, I'm better with words than I am with numbers.
Were you involved in any sort of disability charities or anything like that at an early stage?
Well, to be fair, and I suppose this sounds strange considering the work I do now, but I think as a teenager, and even now I think, as an adult, I tend, although I have loads of friends with disabilities and I have friends that don't have disabilities, I tend not to want to be in a group with just people with disabilities or whatever. I don't want to be seen as, oh, there's that guy with CP, it's just, there's Danielle. So although I love what I do now, I think as a teenager I was more aware of the potential differences, so I kind of wanted to differentiate between the two, if that's the right way of putting it. But yeah, I did get therapy and stuff from it was called Bobath at the time, but now they're called Cerebral Palsy Scotland, and they specialise in treating with people with CP, so I did get therapy and like that, things like that from different charities and like pieces of equipment. Like WizKids bought me a wheelchair over the years, like when I was a teenager, I think, and different pieces of equipment. So charities did help me in that sort of sense.
I'm going to come to your first track, just to kind of lighten it up a wee bit. So we're going to look at This Is Me. Why have you picked that track?
Because in recent months, as you've touched on earlier, I've sort of rebranded Your Options Understood. So I've got a new website and a new logo and things like that. So the new website and the new logo very much reflect me. It's very pink. It's very trendy, I think. So I also did a vlog not so long ago with this as the soundtrack, and it was called Dare to Be Different, and it was all about my hair colour and my dress sense. And a colleague has quite recently said to me, it's all about you as a person, because your pink hair wouldn't go as well if you were sitting there wearing your twin setting pedals. So that always stick with me now, because this is me and this is who I am.
Well, let's hear that track. What I'm going to touch on, Danielle, is your teenage days. Were you a rebel?
I probably was, in terms of things like I did a Being Danielle slot last week, and I did it around about disability aids, and I was talking about being a teenager, and I was probably like my therapist's worst nightmare, because I didn't want obviously I used aids if I needed to, but I didn't want to use them so much that I was sticking out from my friends, like being different, because I needed to use, like, I don't know, like an aid for some reason. So I was probably a rebel in that sense. Yeah. But
you're still a rebel yet, by the looks of it.
Yeah.
But I remember a wee while ago we kind of chatted about, you know, the acceptance of people with disabilities. And one of the sort of conversation I had with you was when I was in the Arches in Glasgow at one time, and I met a young lady who came in. I mean, the place was absolutely packed, and she was in a wheelchair. And I said to her, I says, any friends come in? She said, I'm the only one that's allowed into the Arches. But I says, do you actually get in to see the band? She says, no, I just sit here. And then she started to tell me about the difficulty she had with, you know, getting a hairdresser, getting certain clothes, things like that. Have you ever found difficulties with that, Danielle?
Like for example, I suppose an obvious thing would be like even shoes and stuff. Like more so in recent years as I've got older, I've experienced like swelling in my feet and stuff. So, and although my feet are actually tiny, I'm sitting here just now in the boots I've got on a size 7 because I need it, because the swelling in my feet and like just when you buy like things like jeans and stuff, they're not because it's denim, they're not the comfiest to sit in, so I always buy like bigger sizes and stuff, and jackets and to get easier on and off. So yeah, those kind of things. And again, it goes back to the whole identity thing, because there are companies out there that do specialised clothing, but one of my bugbears is that's fine, but you're either going to look like a kid or a granny, and there's nothing in between. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with Your Options Understood, and like putting vlogs out there like dare to be different, and saying to people be different. Say to people that you want your hair this way, or you know you want to pick an outfit. It shouldn't be picked for you. You know?
It's true. I mean, the sort of side that Laura's really keen on. I mean, she's looking into sort of mental health issues. I mean, mentally, did that have a big impact on you? I mean, Laura, if you want to come in at this stage and maybe sort of chat to Danielle quickly about the mental health sort of side of things.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously you're saying about, you know, not being able to get that you've got these specially made clothes, but obviously they don't come in, you know, all the different styles that you would like. Does that have an impact on your mental health?
Well, it would if I wasn't so outspoken to say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not wearing that. I would rather buy something that's on the mainstream market and buy it 2 sizes too big if that's the case to get it on, just because, you know, just because that's me. But then there's other people out there that wouldn't say that. I mean, I'll give you one example. A couple of years ago, before COVID, I was in Edinburgh with my PA, and we'd been to see a show, and we were just going back to the train station, and I can remember the outfit I had on. I had leopard print boots, a leopard print t-shirt, and a pair of jeans, and this random woman, and she was an older woman, stopped me, and she said, "Excuse me, can I say something?" I said, "Yeah, what is it?" And she said, "You're the most elegant person I've ever seen in a wheelchair." And she just came, I went, "All right, thank you." And she walked away. My PA said, "You all right with that?" And she said, "Yeah, because I genuinely think it was meant as a compliment, because she's obviously seen people, without any disrespect to anybody, but maybe people that aren't verbal or whatever, and maybe clothes have been chosen for them and stuff, and you know, it doesn't reflect them as a person, or to pick an outfit because it's easier to get on them or whatever. You know, and that comment even sticks with me now, because it was really random, but it's just stuck with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something you need to sort of get across to people, you know. when you're your own style, your own sort of way of working, you've dealt with it mentally yourself, Danielle. But
Yeah.
you've came across people out there who don't have that kind of
Loads.
yeah.
I mean, even during lockdown, as you said about my hair, it's only still a bit pink because I've got brave support workers who'll give it a go while I'm not able to go to the hairdressers. But for me, for the last year, if I hadn't been able to do that with the help of my support workers, that would have affected my mental health because that's just part of me and part of who I am. So even if it's just a slight wee thing like my hair, that would have really affected me in the last year.
Do you think, Danielle, that some people pick the normal, not the normal clothes, but some people pick these kind of boring, for want of a better word, they kind of pick the boring clothes to try and hide?
Yeah, and just because it's easier, or because support workers maybe told them, oh, that'll be easier to get on than that one because that's denim and that's well, okay, but buy a size bigger and then you'll be able to get it on. Do you know what I mean? But you know, it's just, I think if people, especially if people are non-verbal or don't have the confidence to communicate, whether deep down they want to say, well, actually, I don't want to wear that. They maybe think they can because their support workers telling them or parents telling them or whatever the case may be.
We're going to come to your next track. It's Miley Cyrus. Why have you picked Miley?
That's The Climb. Because if you listen to the words, it just sums up my life. Because it's a constant battle, whether it be with social work or just housing or whatever. It's a constant battle, and I'm just fortunate enough that I can speak up for myself, and that I do get there, and I do tend to get there, whether I need to enlist the support of others to help me get there, but I do end up getting there, but it's always a climb, so it's very accurate in describing me.
Well, let's hear that track. What I'm going to turn to just now, Danielle, is your sort of education, how you came to where you are just now. You mentioned you did an NC. Was that the first sort of course you did?
Yeah, that was when I went back into mainstream. So I've always had an interest in writing and journalism. So at that point in my life, that's what I decided that I would do my qualifications. And so I started with the NC, HNC and then HND in what was then James Watt College, but it's now Ayrshire College. And then because I had the HND, I could get a direct entry into the third year of the degree at what was then Paisley Uni, but now is the University of the West of Scotland.
So you came through that. Now, the degree sort of level, where did you do that? Was it UWS, you said?
Yeah. All my qualifications have been through UWS.
And it was media?
Yeah.
What was your plan when you went to do media? How would you expect to use that as a career?
As I say, written journalism is probably my main area that I would have went into. I honestly, I don't know when things sort of changed. I think it was when I came to the end of my PhD and I was applying for jobs and not getting very far. And somebody that worked with me quite closely at the time said, have you ever thought of setting up something for yourself, Danielle? And I can honestly say I hadn't. And this is what you mean. And she said, well, you're the one person with a disability that could help others. And as I say, I hadn't thought anything of it, but if anyone that knows me would tell you, if you say something like that to me, it sort of plants a seed. And I thought, I'm not going to know until I try. So initially I contacted the local authority who put me in touch with Business Gateway, and I set up the business, which has obviously came with its challenges along the way. But if I'm honest, it's only been, ironically, in the last year since we went into lockdown that things have taken an unexpected journey, and that I've been busier than I ever was before, to be fair.
I mean, setting up a business is not an easy thing to do.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
And anybody out there say, I would like to set up a business, what kind of hints and tips would you give them?
Just be resilient, and you will. I'm still learning this even now in the past year. You will get constant knockbacks, or there'll be hurdles, or there'll be barriers, or people will make assumptions, which has happened fairly recently, of your capabilities, I think, whether you have a disability or not. So I would say you have to be resilient. If something doesn't work, take some time out to reflect on it and then try again. But one thing I will say that's really important and became really evident to me in the last year is make sure the people around about you that are providing business support, make sure they understand you and understand what you want out of your business and where your aspirations for your business, where you would want that to lead. Because if they're providing the support, then you really need to understand you and where you want to be with your business. Because if you don't have that, the journey might be even harder than it would be.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier on there you were applying for jobs. What kind of jobs were you applying for?
Anything and everything, to be fair. So it was things like research fellowships, it was things media related, so media and communications, it was just anything that was in relation to my skills and my qualification. Because I had, obviously when I applied for my PhD, I was very keen, although again, it might be surprising for people to hear considering what I do now. But at the time when I did my PhD, I wanted the subject matter to be on something not related to disability, because I didn't want to be known as the person with a disability who only researched disability issues, because there's more to me than my CV, like there is for anybody with any disability, and I just wanted that to be reflected at that point.
Your next track you picked, I could probably say, here is the one and only Dr Danielle Farrel.
Well, yeah, you've summed that up right there. When Laura had asked me to pick 5 songs, This Is Me came up fairly straight away because I've already used that as a track. But then when I was thinking of others, and I actually said to one of my support workers, and she said, oh yeah, that's got to be one of your songs, because there is only you and I've said to colleagues recently, I said the world couldn't cope with 2 of me, and it's nothing to do with my disability. So yeah, that just sums up me again.
Let's hear that track. We're going to come back now and want to talk about YOU. You tell us more about YOU. What is it, and what service do you provide?
We provide a range of services that have broadened in the last year due to COVID. So YOU stands for Your Options Understood, because when I was coming up with the title or the name of the business. I wanted it to reflect the people that I support, so that's why I came up with that title, and because it can be abbreviated to you, it's sort of, I think it really strongly gets that message across. So we provide a range of services, so advocacy, education and training, which I now have the capabilities of delivering an online training. So I have a platform where I have designed modules that organisations can purchase until such times as we're able to be in a room again. I also do person-centred planning support. So people might not know what that is, but it's in really basic terms, it's supporting an individual with a disability to think big and to take away the restrictions that services might put on them, and actually get them to think what their dreams might be and work back from that and think what support needs to be put in place to allow that to happen. I now have the training to be able to deliver that, but and obviously that can also be delivered digitally at the moment of such times as restrictions allow otherwise. I can or you can also provide advice and guidance to organisations who are seeking to be fully inclusive, so whether that be in terms of access or even things like how to provide a better service. It would be my aspirations once the world allows, and hopefully once everything opens up again, it would be my hope that your options understood could help businesses look at how they embrace their disabled customers a bit better than they maybe have previously, and look at the procedures that they have in place for things like that, and we could also provide advice and guidance around self-directed support and things and that kind of area as well as consultancy. So just before lockdown, unfortunately, I had to stop because of lockdown, but I was helping. I was working in partnership with a national organisation, and I still do. They're called In Control Scotland, and I was helping them facilitate a government-funded course that was called Working Together for Change, and that was basically what it says, having like professionals and disabled people in the same room and helping them make that connection and work together to make change for disabled people, whether it's in the provision of services or otherwise. I'm still working quite closely with In Control Scotland, so I'll give you an idea of how things have had to change. So they approached me, and I'm doing some video editing work for them as well, but they approached me a few months ago and asked me to help them keep connected with their service users in these challenging times. So because of that, I now have a monthly slot on their YouTube channel called Being Danielle, and I just talk about issues that might be important to people and share my experiences of how I've overcome obstacles. So things like last week was the first Tuesday of the month, so I did it around disability aids, but in the past I've done it around cerebral palsy awareness. I've done it around youth services. Next month I'm doing it around disability awareness days, just in general, and how there's always different disability awareness days for different disabilities. So So yeah, I've had to broaden and sort of widen how people can access services given the restrictions, and I know that these are going to hopefully be lifted over the next few weeks and months, but I think for me there will always be an element of digital there because now we know that it works.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Maybe that's something Laura and I have been looking at as well. I mean, Laura's not going to teach me, but I'm not going to try it. Twitch, Laura.
I don't know very much about that either.
It's something that I do in my spare time. I just do a bit of streaming in spare time, but I'm hoping to try and incorporate it into what Eddy's trying to do, and I'm going to go from the mental health side of things and try and put together a wee mental health show that will go out live on Twitch, which I think would be quite good for a lot of people, and I think even the people you're talking about would actually benefit from it as well. Yourself and others could benefit from maybe even coming on and chatting and just getting people talking about mental health.
That's you getting an invite, Danielle, informal invite.
Yeah.
So we're going to go on Twitch.
Yeah.
See some
I
of
need to
the
find out what that is first because I don't really understand that yet. I'm just getting to grips with Microsoft Teams and everything.
Well, on that, we're coming up to your next track, and it's Rachel Platine, and that's the fight song.
Again, similarly to the previous track, you have to have a lot of fight in you to overcome battles and challenges that society and living with a disability put on you because of it. So yeah, again, it's just related to having to cope with those challenges and overcoming barriers.
Well, let's hear that track. We're coming up to the sort of last segment, coming up to your last track, but I want to talk about the networking in your business. I mean, how do you network? I mean, it must be a massive web of network you have out there to pull this together.
Yeah, to be fair, as I've said, it's only really taken feet in that sort of sense in the last couple of months, last year to be fair, but more so in the last couple of months because I am reaching out to people. I spend a lot of my time sending details out to businesses. Obviously, due to the current circumstances, I haven't been able to get in touch with schools and universities and colleges as much as I would like, but hopefully as things start to open up, that might be easier to do. So I'm reaching out to I had a meeting a couple of months ago with a company over in Belgium that do assistive clothing that you were speaking about earlier. I had an article published not so long ago in a disability magazine, and I've got some meetings coming up in the next few weeks that I wouldn't have even thought of in the last before the last year. But it's just about, because as a colleague said to me, people aren't going to know that you're here and what you do unless you reach out to them. So I spend a lot of my time at the moment just firing out emails and phoning people and saying, look, I'm here, this is what I do, and this is what I can do. And I think slowly but surely it's paying off, and people are actually coming back to me and saying, no, we would like to speak to you, and they're associating the logo with me and the website because it's now a lot more accessible than it once was. So yeah, I think you're right, it's massive. So I've used the contacts I did have in the very early days, but I'm just being a bit more bolder, I guess, and putting myself out there now that I have my YouTube channel and things, and I'm constantly sharing it, so people are now seeing me making that connection. So hopefully in time it'll start to pay off.
I'm going to ask you, have you any hobbies and interests? What do you do with your time?
When I have time to myself, well, I like to read a lot on my Kindle. I like listening to music. When restrictions allow, I like to go out and about. So whether that be to the cinema or to the pub or wherever, but even at that, I don't think that'll happen for a wee while yet, to be fair. But yeah, I just like to socialise and like visit my dad and spend time with my dad, or he comes to visit me, which has probably been one of the main things I've missed in the last year. But yeah, I'm not one for sitting in the house, so this year has been very different to what my life would be before, because whether it would be socially or out at events where I've met yourself or different events, I would never be in the house. So this year's been very different, and I look forward to having some normality, if we can use that word, because what is normal now, but some freedom, I guess, to be able to go out and do the things that I enjoy.
I'm going to kind of round off, but just going to ask you something. I hate the word disability.
Yeah.
Absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
Is there any other way we can express our abilities?
I always concentrate on like the ability part rather than the disability part. So what ability, not disability, or what I heard recently was nothing about us without us. So people not discussing disability without the people that live it. And I guess it goes back to my recent developed tagline of what do I know, I'll live it. So I guess this one is a really old one, but I'd still use it. Some people would argue maybe that they wouldn't, but it's about seeing the person, like almost like when you introduced me earlier, you asked what my disability was, and that's fine because that's relevant and for people listening and whatever, they need to know that. But it's more about, as I've said all along, seeing Danielle. My CP is only a small part of her arm. It doesn't define me, and I think that would be my advice if you were thinking about describing disability. Just about seeing the person, and the disability is almost an afterthought.
Well, I'm going to ask you about, you've picked pink, so what?
For two reasons. As I've said, I have a obsession with the colour pink. It can be reflected in my hair, you can even see it on your ups and unders. The website is very pink. And also the title, so what? That's kind of me. I'm like, you're always told, or often told when you have a disability, that life has to be a certain way, but I'm like, so what if I have to do it differently, or it takes me a while to do it, then so be it.
Well, Dr Danielle Farrel, thank you very much for your time. It's been
No problem.
really interesting interview. Thanks as well to Laura for joining in as well.
No bother.
So let's take us out with Pink and So What.
This interview is brought to you by The Career Show, broadcast right here every Friday, 6 to 8 p.m, exclusively on 3TFM.
103.1. Still keeping it real, 3TFM.